in your eyes, what advantage do you have over your opponent in this coming election?
Well, I've been doing this job now since as the DA for almost 5 years. Um, I've been a prosecutor full time since 2011, and my opponent has limited prosecution experience. He talks about his time in the DA's office. He was part time. We have 5 or 6 attorneys here right now that have more prosecution experience than he does, and it's not close. It's my chief assistant has 30 years of experience. Um, and I wonder, what staff is he going to bring in if he were to be in this position? Anybody that he brings in is going to have less experience than the people that are here now. And he has far less experience than many of the people that work here. And, the advantage I have is that I'm doing this every day. I've done it for every day. I've navigated this office through some of the most sweeping criminal justice changes this state has seen. And I've done that while assisting our local police departments and training our staff and our attorneys here on how we're going to manage these changes. For example, raise the age and our bail changes and our discovery changes. And now we're in the middle of a pandemic where I had to initiate a plan real quickly so that our office remained stable and was able to handle the cases coming in, because even though we had a pandemic and everything was closed, we still had cases coming in. And our plan that we put together was modeled by a number of other DA's offices across the state. And getting ideas from them, we've employed here as well. So I'm not going to take credit for everything that I've done here during the pandemic, but a lot of what we've done, I was able to sit down with my senior staff and we devised a plan that works. And we've continued to do our job throughout this pandemic. And some of that's because of the commitment we made to technology over the last couple of years to move into a completely digital case management program, which has really saved us and allowed us to continue to work even if we have to be at home.
One of the concerns that your opponent has expressed through not just us, but the media in general during this election season is he'd like to see the district attorney's office, especially if he was to be elected, reach out more to the victims of felony crimes. Do you believe that your office could do better at reaching out during the development of these cases?
There are always going to be individual cases where when we do our review, we wish we would have done this or that. But it's mildly insulting to say that my staff doesn't communicate with victims. We're very committed to that. We've actually increased the number of people that work in our victims coordinator's office, compliments of the grant given to us by the state, because of that need. My attorneys are regularly and frequently in contact with the victims of our crimes, and to suggest otherwise just isn't managing the truth very well. I saw his interview with your network last week, and he talked. The standard status quo political line when you run against the incumbent is they're not doing a very good job, and I'll do it better. I didn't expect him to say that we've done a knock-up job and we get everything right. That wouldn't be a very good election platform to run on. But to call my ADA's underlings, it's one thing to talk about what the DA is doing and you're in a race against him, but he actually called my assistant district attorneys underlings because they handle violent crime. We had over 200 violent offenses in this county last year. He's vowing to handle all those cases himself. He sat right here, interviewed with Justin Gould on your network, and said he's going to handle all the violent offenses. That's 210 offenses last year. I don't see a scenario where he can do that. He talked about how I focus on administration, and absolutely I do. That's one of the qualities I view as a positive. We have a large enough office where I have to do a number of things, including handle the most serious cases. And for him to suggest that I'm not handling the most serious cases, that's not accurate. It's not truthful. I've handled all of our homicides. There's one case maybe that he could say I didn't handle. We took a shot and we prosecuted the Hodnick case because of time constraints, and we were less than we would have preferred a different verdict than that. But I didn't try that case because I was preparing for another trial that started 2 weeks later. And you can't say to people, I'm going to do all of these things because this job is so multi-hatted that you have to be able to do a number of things at the same time. And you can't place yourself in the role of being the only person that prosecutes in an office this size. If we were the size of an Allegheny County or Schuyler County, there would be the DA in those counties handles all those cases because they have like 300 cases. I was joking with my colleague from Yates County and Schuyler County the other day, asking them, what do you guys do with all your time? And it was a joke, but because they're busy, but they handle, their counties have 300 cases a year. My prosecutors handle 287 on average. So, to say you're going to do all of this and do all that, those are sweeping promises that I don't make. I'm not going to make. We're going to do our job the best we can. I'm going to continue to train and hire the very best people to work in this office. And that's how I go about doing my business. You begin to make promises as you become a politician. And in this office, you're a prosecutor. And what you're doing is seeking justice. And sometimes that means a jury reviews the evidence and they find someone not guilty. That's justice. Our criminal justice system is not set up for the prosecutor to win every single time. There is a very high burden of proof. And the system's set up so that it's fair, so that the guilty get convicted and the innocent go free. And if it were set up for the prosecutor to just win, there wouldn't be trials. There would just be guilty pleas. And we get a lot of those too. So, we've done a very good job here. I'm very happy with the staff that I have. I mean, they're amazing. And to insult them by calling them underlings, I really took offense to that when I listened to his interview last week.
And just segueing on here, I know earlier in our interview here, you mentioned that the overall conviction rate in your office was, would it be fair to say, between 95 and 100%?
Yeah, we're above 95%. We convict almost 99, a little over 99%. I mean, the reality is most of the cases in our county get resolved with guilty pleas. And, some people go through a treatment court option and then their case is dismissed sometimes because they've satisfied a very vigorous treatment court program. But we try to find a balance, and it's a difficult one. You have to evaluate each case individually, and that's the unfortunate part about having such a high caseload, because you really want your prosecutors to be finding justice the very best they can in every single case, and that's when you got piles and piles of cases in front of you, where you have almost double what the average state caseload is. That some days that's tough, but I'll tell you what, I can't say enough about my staff.
We've had viewers express concerns with you and your office regarding those few cases that may not have gone your way, the ones that are, I guess, had higher notoriety within the media.
Sure.
How do you address their concerns, especially as we get closer to Election Day?
Yeah, as a public official, you welcome regular and frequent evaluation. It's part of the job. People want to see certain things, and they want to see the same result every time. But we've had some very interesting cases over the last 4 years. My office has had to prosecute the first woman charged with a homicide trial in Stock County ever. We've done that 3 times now. All of them claiming self-defense. So we've had some very, very interesting cases come our way. And what I can tell those folks that are wondering, well, how do people get acquitted? Well, people get acquitted because the level of evidence isn't there. There's a high burden of proof to convict someone of a crime in this country, and there should be. The prosecutors that I have in this office and myself, we train regularly on trial techniques. We're actively engaged in the New York State Prosecutors Training Institute. We're doing things to make sure we're doing our jobs the right way. And we put all the evidence in front of these juries, and we ask those people to make a finding of guilt or innocence, and they do that. And the system works. We have quite possibly the best criminal justice system in this world. And it's certainly not perfect, but what it does do is it requires the state to provide a lot of evidence to convict someone and take their liberty. And the unfortunate part of that is sometimes the evidence isn't there. You don't have the witnesses that you need. We're certainly putting all of the evidence in front of these juries and asking them for a finding of guilt when we believe that's what is the actual case. We also have an obligation where if we don't think the person's guilty, to move for dismissal. So, we have an ethical obligation here to not only vigorously fight for the people and the victims of this county and the state, but also make sure that we're not convicting guilty people. And what I would say to the voters out there that look at it's less than a handful of cases where the conviction wasn't for the top count. We've had a couple of acquittals on self-defense cases, and we've had other people convicted of other charges in the indictment. But what I would say to those folks is, the system isn't set up for us to win no matter what. It never was. It never will be. And you certainly can't promise that you're going to win cases that someone else would have lost, because we have very good people working in this office, not only in the trials themselves, but in the scenes, in the background, getting things ready. But I would say to those voters, look, this system's set up to find justice, and taking someone's liberty, the standard of proof is very high. And sometimes jurors of your peers, they don't think that there's enough evidence. We continue to fight for what we think is right, but our criminal justice system is set up the way that it is for a reason.
Now, take us through, for our viewers, and this is whether you'd be reelected or if your opponent would be elected. What's the process for getting ready for a trial? Because I know every trial is different, but I'm going to use the David Wagner trial for an example, since I was up there. That spanned about, I'd say, about 2 weeks. When you say, what goes into the preparation for that?
If you count jury selection, it took about 4, but the preparation took about 8. And that's just getting ready for a trial. What my wife will tell you is I'm non-existent for months. We're talking about 6 to 8 weeks prior to one of those major trials, which is why I can't say I'm going to take every single violent crime and I'm going to handle it up in county court, because it doesn't work that way. You spend weeks prepping for one of these things. So you meet with witnesses, you call witnesses, you sit down with them, you talk about the kinds of questions you're going to ask them. And you do that only after you've tediously prepared your order of proof, what you think the procession of that evidence should be. You essentially are choreographing evidence, and you want to make sure that it's going in a way that makes sense, that a juror can digest. And it's a lot of work prepping for that. And then you have to sit down with your witnesses again and again, and talk to them about the things they're going to be asked, what to expect. Most people don't have a firm grasp on what we're doing upstairs. So when we have a witness, we take them from start to finish of what to expect. Now that comes after the initial look at the case, when it happens. So when Wagner happened, we were at the scene. And we were at the scene, not only myself, but 2 of my assistants, along with my investigator. We were there assisting Jamestown police and helping them with any legal issue that they had come up. Now, in addition to that, I'm listening in on interviews of people. I'm listening in on interviews of the defendant, and I'm speaking with investigators about the kind of information that I want, because the police job is different than the prosecution job. I'm thinking down the road, what's going to come up at trial in this case? What do I need to know now so that later we have something to meet that with? So there's a lot of work that goes in on the very front end, and then you're in grand jury, which takes time to prep for too. In Wagner's case, we presented it within 5 days. So essentially for those 5 days, we were working on just one thing, me and a number of other people in this office. And then we present it to a grand jury, and then things go through the normal pretrial procedures. Motions are filed, but then you set a trial date, and then you start to dig down into preparation for trial. And it's a lengthy process. You don't get ready for trial in a week. You get ready for trial in a number of weeks. And usually the number of weeks to get ready for trial is more than the trial actually takes.